Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. Allora, immagina la seguente situazione. Finalmente è arrivato il giorno della tua speaking e l'esaminatore ti fa la seguente domanda. Some people say that the best way to keep up to date with the changes in the world is to watch the news on TV. Do you agree? In una situazione simile, il 90% dei candidati si concentrerebbe a dare una risposta veritiera, senza preoccuparsi troppo della grammatica o del lessico che sta usando in quel momento. So, very often, candidates give a simple answer. They say exactly what they would say in a real conversation with somebody else. So, most of the time, they end up saying something like this. No, not really. I don't agree that watching the news on TV is the best way to stay up to date. I mean, it can be useful, but there are plenty of other ways to get information. For instance, a lot of people use the internet to read news articles and they follow updates on social media. Okay, that's a good answer. That's a good enough answer for a real conversation in the real world. But the problem is that you're not preparing for a conversation with a native speaker or a non-native speaker in the real world. You're preparing for an exam. And trust me when I say that holding a conversation in the real world and passing an exam with flying colours are two completely different things. Would that answer be good enough to get a high score in Cambridge First and in Cambridge Advanced? Probably not, because it was a bit too simple. So how could you answer that question and really impress the examiners? Diamo un'occhiata insieme a 4 espressioni che potrebbero esserti molto utili in un simile contesto. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Idiom number 1 is doom and gloom. Doom and gloom. What does it mean exactly? The expression doom and gloom refers to all those news reports that focus on negative, pessimistic, or really depressing topics, which often highlight problems such as disasters, crises, or bad events without offering much positivity or hope for the future. Let's take a look at an example. I've stopped watching the news because it's all doom and gloom. Every single report just seems to focus on the worst case scenarios, and it's really overwhelming. Idiom number 2. Live in a bubble. Live in a bubble. Now, when someone lives in a bubble, this means that they are isolated from or they're completely unaware of current events, news, or important issues which are happening in the world, all because they choose to focus only on their personal surroundings or their personal interests. Ever since Steve stopped following the news, he's been living in a bubble, completely unaware of the major events happening globally. Idiom number 3. In the loop. In the loop. The expression in the loop means that you are informed or up to date with the latest information or news. Being in the loop implies being part of an inner circle of people who are fully informed about a particular topic. For instance, Jess makes sure that she stays in the loop by following news podcasts and subscribing to alerts so that she's always the first one in our group to know when something major happens. Idiom number 4 is to hit the headlines. When something hits the headlines, it means that it becomes widely reported in the media and it often draws a lot of public attention due to the importance of the story or due to its sensational nature. The rapper's arrest hit the headlines after multiple serious accusations of abuse were made against him. Okay, now let's take a look at how we could use these expressions in context. Example number 1. Yeah, I agree. I agree that watching the news on TV is probably the best way to stay in the loop on major events. Although, on the other hand, it can expose you to a lot of doom and gloom, so I guess it could potentially create a negative outlook on the world. Example number 2. To be honest, I don't think that TV news is the best way to keep you informed about the stories that hit the headlines. People who rely on TV news alone tend to live in a bubble, So they're only exposed to a limited perspective of the current events, and this usually creates a false sense of understanding of what's really going on in the world. Molto meglio, no? Sicuramente in un contesto esame questo tipo di risposta, l'uso di alcune espressioni idiomatiche può incidere molto positivamente sul tuo risultato finale. That's all for today's video. If you found it useful, don't forget to like it. It doesn't cost you a single penny and it helps me a lot. Until next time, goodbye.